Hello again, people. ELAVI Truth TV one more time with interview number 3. Today we're going to go in and speak to an individual called Stuart Newton, a powerful individual who's working within the realms of knife crime. The reason why I say he's a powerful individual, as you will see in the interview, is because he turned adversity into a positive thing. Something negative into positive, and that's what we like to see on ELAVI Truth TV. The other thing that I learned while I was interviewing Stuart is that he has a connection with a lot of people who are working in this area. And one of those people is, I don't know this individual, but I would also say it's an amazing individual based on the song that he has produced, written and produced, which I will be using in this interview. Now, the interview is split into 2 parts. You'll see it all together, but just for the sake that it might seem like there's a slight break in continuity, don't get stressed out, yeah, because we're going to play the music in between those 2 parts. So let's just think about the information that's coming across. I don't know, I might even play this song twice. Quinton Green, his name is. And I might even play this song twice, but I'm not going to play it at the moment. I'm going to go into the interview about knife crime with Mr. Stuart Newton. We're going to go to part 1. We're going to play the song, then we're going to get into part 2. Let's go in. Stuart Newton, thank you for joining me on ELAVI Truth TV interviews. You're the 3rd person to come on, and I think it's going to be a very special and important interview. I'll just say as well, the reason I asked you is because I don't know, I got a different sense about your page that you're doing. It comes across very heartfelt, very genuine. You know, I've seen a lot of other pages as well, you know, the other groups. And I saw that it was very new, you know, what you've set up, and that you've come through a lot of stuff. So with me, I've come through like the family courts, and I ended up in prison, and I was seeing like the state of the people that are in prison, a lot of young people, you know, and knife crime was obviously prevalent. So that's why I reached out to you, really. And so there's a lot of questions I'd like to ask. And one of the first questions I'd like to ask is this. And especially how you mentioned, you was talking about the music and how it's geared towards stuff, yeah. Go in, because
yeah, so I've got a few connections there who down in London. I've got connections all over, obviously England, Scotland and Wales now from the last year, since we'll go into what happened to me obviously in a bit, but the work I've done since trying to help yous now, because I know that you're into your music. I asked you the question, didn't I? Do you know these 2 people? It's 2 people that support me a lot actually in the work I do. They're part of the group now as well. We do things together. I refer people to them because one of them, Quinton Green, runs a music shop, and it's, you know, a music program towards younger kids to get them involved in that, and to basically poets, but literary sense. So it's more spoken word poetry. So he does that, and Jermaine Davis does the same thing. Now, their music is a clear message of against violence, against knife crime, against the culture, and that there is better things out there for them that they can achieve if they want to. Whereas what I said to you is, within mainstream music, because it does sell more, and let's face it, it is about profit. It is, a lot of it is geared towards violence. It's geared towards gang. It's geared towards knife crime and drugs. You know, rap's been around for ages. It's done that. Drill's doing the same sort of thing. Now, I do understand a lot of people will express and say, well, music's a form of expression, and it's expressing life on the streets now. Well, okay, that's fine. It is life on the streets now, and a lot of the people are growing up in this culture. But it doesn't need to be displayed to vulnerable young minds, because younger people, the younger generation, are open to this, you know.
So can I ask you then, Stuart, are you saying that the music not only, okay, people do say it's an expression, that's one side, like you say, but do you believe the music actually gears young people to be more violent? Do you think?
I reckon it's one of many complex, you know, reasons as to why the reasons for the knife crime and violence and gangs the culture is multifaceted. You know, we can go into all different things, but yes, absolutely. It desensitizes. It's even within certain games,
and
you know, that they play up. Yeah, it does. It glamorizes it. It desensitizes it. Makes it normal. You know, if it's a computer game showing it, then it's got to be okay. They're brought up playing it. If there's music, people who are in the media, you know, singers who are getting paid to bring out this music are glamorized. It normalizes it. It desensitizes the whole issue.
And do you think there's an agenda behind that? Because, you know, I would say that the majority of what you would call urban music, yeah, because you mentioned two people there who are doing positive
Yep.
music. Now they're fighting against a tide, a machine that is pushing out this music. You know, because I don't really see any positive. You know, there might be the odd musician or odd rapper or odd poet or something like might be saying some positive stuff, but in the mainstream, I think it is a standard thing, and I think it sends the message that young people can gain power, success. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's sort of way, you know, I can go back and I can say, look, there's many, many issues, which there is, but I can bring most of them back, and I'm not, you know, political as such, but I can bring things back to the government in most cases. Always can do it. It's even, you know, at the start of knife crime, it used to be that people used to turn around and shout, it's, you know, and it was very racist, really, in the regards to how it was. It's a black culture. It's, you know, it's an Asian culture. It's not a white culture, you know, and this is our government pointing it towards this way. Now they'd be like, well, it's from disadvantaged backgrounds. What they say now it's proven it's not, because it's all over. You know,
All
it's
over.
mainstream. It's white, blue collar. I was stabbed myself. But they don't look, and they point it so that people turn on that, you know, sort of that area or that race. But that's an effect either way. If it's a disadvantaged area, what you've got to look at first is, why is it a disadvantaged area?
Yeah.
How does it become a disadvantaged area? The government haven't put money into it. So straight away, it's back to them. They're trying to steer the focus away and say, look, it's happening in these areas, but they're not doing anything to put money into these areas, you know?
True. So now, obviously, people might be thinking now about a few things you've said and I've said about what you're actually doing and what's your background. It would be good to know how you've come to this point, because obviously we'll go deeper into how you know, the other issues that we think could be affecting the problems, or but yeah, what has brought you to this place? What's happened to you that's brought you to?
Well, I mean, my background is I haven't always been in youth work. I mean, growing up, from the age of 9, I was playing for Everton youth team. So from a very young age, I was in the spotlight as such. I went into high school. I sort of always really, I found it hard making friends, because you didn't know who to trust, because of the success that I was getting. People wanted to be attached to you, you know, and be friends with you. That went on till I was like 17. And I walked away from that life. I wanted to find my own way, because from such an early age, I had been told, this is what you're going to do. You know, this is where you're going to be. Now, fundamentally, and that did affect me, because fundamentally, I believe that we should not repress any child's dream. Everyone has their own identity, and it's for us to support them and allow them to find their own way, not
Very
push
true.
them into a certain direction, which a lot of education does now. They put bums on seats, and it's like all about the get your qualification, get this, for all their Ofsted reports. If someone now is more outspoken, whereas when I was in school, it showed that you had potential, because you had your own mind. Whereas now it's like, well, bum and seat, no, you're not allowed to express. You're looked at as a problem child, shall we say, in brackets. You know, someone that's got behavioural issues, and they're too quick to push them ones and exclude them, get them out the door. They end up in pupil referral units, which makes them more vulnerable. You know, we're going to all that. I go off a bit. But what got me into it is, from there anyway, I went into finance. I started working a long time in finance, about 20 years. It just wasn't for me. It was one of them again that, you know, I was trying to find my own way, but a few traumas had happened within my life. I had lost a few friends, had died. My son I had a child, he was kidnapped from me and taken away. Yeah, I went to prison myself for an offence I hadn't committed. I served, it was a 5.5-year sentence, and I served pretty much all of that sentence before being released and being overturned, that
Right.
conviction. So that affected me greatly. But yeah, so when I've come out, I got married. I moved away to Wales. The marriage literally only lasted about a month because of all the effects of my life, you know, with obviously the prison and everything before it. I was suffering with a bit of PTSD. Being isolated in Wales away from my family and a support network, which, as you know, support network, if you're going through mental health issues, anything, it is essential. I couldn't face it. I upped and left the marriage. I went into support work. I was working in Southport, supporting some people around drug and alcohol issues. I took 3 of them to a music event in Southport, but it was over a weekend, so it wasn't during a working week. This one fella, he was 43. It got brought to my attention he was having a fight with a member of the public. I've gone over and broke up the fight. The police have come because there was no, it was more just shoving and pushing. There wasn't much going on apparently, so the police just went, look, it's a lovely sunny day. It's a Christian music event that you're outdoor listening to. We'll move this person to the other end of the pier. We'll keep you here. If you approach him, then it means you've gone looking for it, and then obviously you'll be arrested. So that was it. Left at that. Carrying on, enjoying the music. I'm interacting with people, chatting. Gets brought to my attention again. This fella that's with me that I'm looking after is abusing a wedding party outside of a hotel. So I've gone over. I've had words with him again. Obviously telling him, look, there's children around, and you're behaving like a bigger kid than most of them. You're spoiling someone's wedding day. Just rein it in, or we're going to have to move on without you. You look after yourself. I don't want you in my company. So I think it was 40 minutes after that. I'm talking to an older couple. He snuck up behind me, stabbed me twice in the back of the neck. I hadn't really realised. I felt like 2 taps was all it was. It wasn't until the couple started screaming that I realised, and I've put my hand to my neck and it's covered. It was black, covered in blood. At that point, I've turned around to look where he was, and he had snuck around this hut, this shelter that they have on the prom, and come up behind me and stabbed me another 10 times. It was lucky. I mean, you see a lot of times, don't you, when there's knife crime offences or violent offences, a lot of people are very quick to get the phones out and start videoing what's going on. Now, I can understand from a point of view of if an attack is happening, it's for evidence, and I understand that. But when someone's literally dying in front of your eyes, too many people are too quick to upload these images as well onto websites, which I find disgraceful that they're even allowed to be on, because again, it's just showing violence. But luckily, no one's on that.
About our culture as well, though, that that what you've just said there. What does that really say about our culture? Because to suffer such a traumatic, life-threatening, incident like that, and have people just filming it, it's
well, exactly. It's not right, is it? It doesn't say a lot about the caring nature of our society at the moment. A lot has been lost. And it's heartbreaking, but in this incident, no one did. I mean, there was cameras luckily around. We got the evidence. Was all there. It was all filmed, all of it. But yeah, both lungs collapsed. I bled out within a couple of minutes. I lost my entire body weight in blood, yet I was still on my feet. Whether you call it adrenaline or what, or shock, somehow I was upright, although officially, I was dead. The ambulance came. I was in the ambulance. They had to stabilise both lungs before even moving me, and they had to give me 8 blood transfusions before even attempting to move me. So they got me to Aintree Hospital. So it was Southport. They blue lighted me to the trauma hospital, which was in Liverpool. The police met me there in the trauma room. The police were sent ahead to take forensics off my body, because they were expecting me to turn up at the hospital dead on arrival. I walked into the hospital. Everyone was in shock. I just didn't realise the extent of the injuries. But it quickly became apparent I was internally bleeding, and I had minutes left to live because he had gone through my spleen twice and ruptured my spleen. So 8 hours.
All these injuries, and again, you wasn't knowing what was really.
No, at the time, honestly, it's just shock, adrenaline. I wasn't expecting it to happen. He'd come up behind. It wasn't like an altercation, with Dad before anything, and he's in front of me. And you're visually coming, you can see it coming. It's like you say to people, it's like people walk on hot coals. If they try and put their mind somewhere else and they're not aware looking down of what they're walking on, they can walk across these burning hot coals. I wasn't aware of what had happened. I'd never seen the knife coming. So it was 8 hours of surgery later. They had to do repairs to me heart, lungs, stomach, diaphragm, neck, and they had to rip me right open as well and remove me spleen to save me life. Now, unfortunately, that means that my lungs, because they had both collapsed, the class now as COPD. So I've got bad lungs now, which can collapse. Once they've collapsed once, unfortunately, it can happen at any time, really. But I've got no immune system because your spleen is what fights disease. It gives what gives you immunity. So, as you can appreciate, I have to shield now. I'm in a high risk category, but I get tablets to give me some sort of assistance. I get injections. All the injections that everyone has growing up. I've had to have again. And I have to constantly have them for the rest of my life. But 5 days in, I upped and left the hospital once all the tubes were out, all the drains were out, once my lungs had reinflated. Fair enough, I was, stapled from head to toe. But I wanted to make a difference because you don't necessarily hear the victim story. When it comes to knife crime and these, especially something as so severe as this attack and the level of the injuries, sadly, most people don't live to speak about it. So
and do you think the individual in question was actually trying to kill you, or they just didn't care?
Well, when he went to trial, they charged him with attempted murder. And that was, when he went to trial, it was for attempted murder. But they gave a second indictment, a lesser indictment of the lesser charge of wounding with intent. He pleaded guilty straight away to the wounding with intent and carrying a bladed article in public, but went not guilty to the attempted murder. He run a trial, and the jury gave him a not guilty on the attempted murder because of his mental health issues in the past, and the fact that he was under the influence at the time because he had had a drink. He said they couldn't reasonably determine what was in his mind at that time, despite the fact he stabbed me 12 times in virtually every vital organ, major organ that you can, which each stab wound could have potentially killed me. It was an absolute miracle that I survived. It
Quite
really
shocking
was.
as well that somebody wouldn't get attempted murder for that.
It's unbelievable.
I'm sorry, can I ask you,
No.
I don't want to lose the question really. Now, a lot of people that you most probably, a lot of young people you're thinking about, they're slightly different from your situation in the sense that yours was more of a surprise attack, wasn't it? And in a lot of young people's cases, they're living with that ever-present danger of knife crime. They're walking around with knives, and their life, that is part and parcel of their lives. So what gave you that jump from your situation? Because your situation, it didn't necessarily need to lead to like the young people who are getting involved with knife crime. So how did that happen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could have been angry, couldn't I? I could have been, and just, woe is me, feeling sorry for myself. I've got scars all over my body. I'm ill for the rest of my life. I could have been angry, but what's the point? At the end of the day, I've been blessed to have been given that life where other people have lost their lives. So for me to turn around and feel sorry for myself is like a slap in the face of all bereaved families who have lost someone. Now, I always say, you can't always choose what happens to you in life. None of us can. But you can always choose how you react. That's always your power to react. So, and I decided to react positively. I wanted to basically, initially, to put my story out as a survivor. And I even straight away, when I put my story on social media, I put the wounds. We have pictures of the wounds, and I put them raw as they can be. Yeah, I just thought, let's put it out there to shock people, and it did. I mean, the story went viral very quickly. people all over the country started getting in touch with me, and that's how I sort of fell into what I'm doing with the youths. Is I met a lot of bereaved families who had lost children to knife crime. So I come and I started talking with them. I'd done some big charity events for them and raised funds for some of these campaigns. But then more and more started hearing about my story from this, and I was meeting with the Police Crime Commissioner of Cheshire, and I organised a walk there for Knife Crime Awareness over in Cheshire. And he was speaking to me, and he was amazed because I was doing this walk with him only like a month and a half after. Well, it was just under a month and a half after this attack, and I'm still stapled up everywhere, and I'm doing a mile and a half walk with him, trying to raise awareness. And he said, I really believe the children will listen to your story because it's inspiring. It comes from a powerful mindset, and basically surviving something like that and basically proving anything's possible. A miracle's only a miracle when the impossible becomes possible. Now, I was officially dead, and survived, and then I'm up to doing this walk. So he said, is there any chance you can put something together and work with some youth offenders? So from there, I was put in touch with youth offending teams who started referring people to me. I went into business with someone else who was a trainer. So he's a tutor trainer, could provide qualifications. So we put everything together, my mindset, my story behind it, to open up and allow them then, because me being so raw and open about it and the effects on me personally and what I had to suffer for the rest of my life and go through, it allows the door to open for them. Because with children, I mean, a lot of times when, obviously, if it's youth offenders, they need respect. They can't be stigmatized and, and put in a certain pigeonhole. There's still people, they've made a mistake, they've chosen a wrong path. We all, not one of us in our lives has never made a mistake. And everyone, given the right support, I believe, and the right, pathway shown to them, and support and, mentorship behind them, can choose any path and change their lives. So that's what we've done. We started doing it. It was from then I, started speaking quite closely with the chair of the Youth Justice Board, with many violent reduction units. And I've just started, obviously, positively helping a lot of young people from that, creating youth programs and obviously pathways for them.
Yeah. So when you said there, Stuart, about respect, you've got to give them respect. Do you think a lot of the times when they're getting involved in certain types of lifestyles, it is because they feel disrespected and...
Without a doubt, right? This is a common theme that I say all the time. And as I said, I'm not really political. However, 10 years ago, the youth system wasn't as bad as it is. There was a lot of youth services, there was youth clubs, there was extracurricular activities, there was the youth workers as support there, liaisons for these children. Well, for us, not necessarily me, because I go back a bit further, but I had those opportunities when I was younger. Now, let's face facts, there will always be violent crime in society. Unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast. We're carnivorous people, hunter-gatherers as such, so that's within us, within our DNA. But obviously, we're more civilized than we were millions of years ago. But unfortunately, the values that we've learned to become more civilized, those opportunities and those mentorships and nurturing aren't there for our kids. So that animalistic side does obviously, it comes out because it's within your DNA. If you've not got the right guidance and everything, but the government stopped funding and has done year on, year out. Now, what that says to me and what showed the younger generation is they don't matter. That's disrespect, So the younger generation, as you're going through puberty or whatever, these are children are developing, not just physically, but mentally. They're trying to find their place in life. At the same time, they're trying to find their own identity, who they are. These services to allow them to express themselves, to gain respect from achieving in a sport or this and that is being taken away. Even to the point if you do sports, now a lot of sports, even sports days I'm told in school, there's no more, it's not about first, second place. Everyone it's about participation. Now, as much as people say, oh, that's a good thing, I'm sorry, if you look at it from the flip side, it's not, because what it's saying to children is you don't have to try, you don't have to excel to be rewarded. Basically, do the bare minimum, and you'll get rewards anyway. That is no lesson to teach our children at all.
No.
So I think that's had a great impact. As I say, it's the government really taking all these things away, like the youth services, has, you know, given that. Where did they get the respect from now?
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be the peer groups, you know, so that's who they sort of turn to. And unfortunately, if someone's not happy with society and thinks it's unfair, they're not going to play by the rules, are they? They're more likely to lash out. We're adults. Not all adults can control their emotions. Emotions are powerful things. How can we expect our children who haven't been nurtured, shown a way, who are full of, you know, disappointment, feel frustrated, you know, anger towards, you know, the lack of, how can we expect them to act in other ways?
Powerful stuff. So when you talk about the government taking away all these resources over these decades, there's certain businesses that have been thriving in these kind of environments, and one is like the prison service, you know, the school to prison railroad.
Yeah.
That seems to be quite prevalent now, because like I say, I was in prison for speaking out on the family court system, and that's why I went into prison. They held me on remand twice for making videos. I'd never been to prison before, you know, and it was as a result of the family court and not seeing my children. So the fact that I was a father that had been taken out of his children's lives, and know that children, boys, daughters too, need a father to kind of guide them. You know, I became very involved in the you know, fact that we have a fatherless society as well. You know,
It's sad. It is very much like that. That unfortunately, a lot of people aren't there as much for the children anymore, and a lot of fathers either walk away. They don't want to be involved because maybe if they're trapped in this culture as well. But I can't blame the culture for that. In respect, sometimes you can, but some fathers just don't care and walk away. However, your situation, there is situations, mine, where my child was just, taken. I agree with you. Children need a role model. It can start at home, obviously, that, you have ACEs, which is your adverse child experiences, can lead into gangs, weapon violence, county lines. It doesn't necessarily have to be that they haven't been nurtured now and they're not getting the right education and opportunities. It's because of things that have happened, when they've been young. But if you haven't got that role model there, absolutely, you need that guidance and nurture. And I've just put out recently on Twitter, which has got a lot of response, that I personally think that children, they look up to their own peer group. So rather than someone of, say, 30, 40 years of age speaking to a child, telling them what to do and this and that, showing them a pathway, they're more likely to listen to someone within their own age demographics. So if it's 13 or 14-year-old, they're going to listen to an 18, 19-year-old. So I've said I believe that there should be mentorship programs within all schools. Because not everyone has that at home, as you just said. Not everyone has a father figure there, a role model, to guide them and support them on the right path. So it should be identified, these people within schools, and they should, maybe the older pupils, give them the support there, the mentors for them, and it's a peer mentorship qualification for the older pupils as well. Everyone needs someone there. I mean, you can't go alone, can you, at the end of the day? Some people do. I know, I'm not going to say that mothers on their own don't do a good job, because I know a lot of mothers just step up and really are that support.
Of course. But what I'd like to say, though, what I'd like to ask you is about, in terms of raising boys. I know a lot of girls get involved in, gangs too, but the boy problem, the fact that the respect thing, the like you say, the lack of role models. Do you think that there's a particular draw towards gangs?
Yeah, well, towards gangs, you've got to give the sense of family and respect, isn't it? It's your family now. These around you, it's these will do. They've got your back. They're there for you, and that's it. They want that. They want that feeling of family, that feeling of belonging to something. Now, fear, you know, because they're going around in groups, because they're doing this and doing that, they have respect, but it's from fear, you know, and I don't think that's certainly not the right way to get respect, is it? Fear and respect, I believe, are completely different things anyway. But yeah, a lot of people do go to war, and it's the opportunities of the easy money that they're offered as well, in a lot of these things. Yeah.
So, in terms of certain demographics in certain areas, do you think, because you were saying it's everywhere now, on your show mentioned, oh yeah, I wanted to just take you back a little bit to the prison stuff I was talking about, because it seems like a lot of people that shouldn't be in prison are being excluded from schools, they're in certain lifestyles and ending up in prison. And once they get into that cycle, it's an ongoing cycle, you know.
Yeah, it perpetuates, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of, as I was saying, about people who are outspoken now, and they're not treated in the correct way as someone who potentially wants to find their own identity. Just because someone is teaching you something, you may have an opinion on something. I'm allowed an opinion. Next man's allowed an opinion. It doesn't mean the person who's teaching is, you know, it's their opinion is right. It's, you know, everything should be open for debate and everyone should be allowed to speak. But when someone with a free mind, their own identity, wants to speak out, as I said before, they're pigeonholed or stigmatized as a problem person. They're quickly expelled. They're quickly put into these pupil referral units.
Yeah.
Once they're in there, I mean, they're in maybe school for 1 hour a day. That's it. Now, they haven't got the opportunities anymore that a lot of people have. They've already been excluded. They're not going to, you know, they're not getting the education that everyone else is getting. So potentially they're not going to get the qualifications they need, the jobs they need, which is easy for gangs to come and groom them into it, even county lines, to say, look, we'll take you on board. Because obviously they're upset over the situation. Why have I been treated like this?
Yeah.
You know, so it's so much easier for them to get paper put in their hands, doing, you know, wrong things and choosing the wrong pathway.
Now, you mentioned the word there, grooming, which I wanted to mention, because a lot of people who are not understanding of the principles of how gang life works and stuff like this. A lot of people when they hear grooming, they think it's to do with, you know, sexual grooming and stuff like this. But there is a particular way that children are groomed into the gang life, isn't there? And I don't know if you could elaborate on some of that a little bit, you know, because I think it's important for parents to know this, you know, what goes on, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, if you're talking county lines, which is county line drug gangs, these vulnerable children, like I've just pointed out, and kids in care, they're predominantly the target demographic for these people. But any child, especially now during lockdown, is more vulnerable. Yes, and especially now because of lockdown and everything, and obviously family financial difficulties, this is where it happens now. What they'll start doing is they'll give them, I mean, on the outside, when it's not locked down, what you'll find a lot is, here's a bit of weed, here's a bit of cocaine. And what they do is they'll entice them with that. Then and they'll befriend them, you know, they'll pose as like a friend and they're trying to support them, helping them out, listening. And then next thing, here's this, here's that. Not asking for no cash for it. So it's getting the person to think, oh, this is my friend. You know, he's looking after me. They might buy them something to eat, buy them a drink, buy them this, that, buy them a pair of trainers. You know, the parents aren't buying them. It's at this point when they've got them hooked and they've given these things that things change, and they say, well, for you, can you do this favor for me? Can you just take this parcel here or this bit here? As they get deeper into it, the violence comes in then. You've got a debt, and it's called debt bondage because of the things that they've given them. They now owe. This gang owns them. So it's basically, if you don't do what we say, if you don't care about yourself and you don't mind us getting you, then we'll go and get your family. So it's you know, it's obviously threats against other people. And that's how it's so easy and so quick. And, you know, so many people aren't aware of the seriousness and the gravity of the situation. There's like 27,000 county line gangs operational within our country.
Yeah.
No,
so let's go a bit more into county lines, and because you've said about, you know, the vulnerability and how they're drawn in, you know, and how they're groomed basically. But some people won't understand what a county line is, you know, and
okay, so county line actually it's moving drugs from bigger cities, say like London, Liverpool, Birmingham, to more rural, urban areas. What they do is obviously, you know, they set up people up there. There's something called cuckooing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of
Well,
cuckooing.
like take over somebody's house, kind of, and
they're going to. Yeah, and they'll take over. They'll set up there, and then they potentially, you know, either they might even get that person doing the dealing for them. But a lot of times they set them up as trap houses.
yeah,
But yeah, so it's the term county lines comes from, obviously they groom a lot of these young children to travel from these cities to these areas, taking the drugs. Used to be by train quite a lot that they used to do it. During lockdown, they've moved away from trains, and a lot of them are obviously, you know, are being taken down in cars. But yes, it comes, county lines is from the phone lines, because it's between the counties, the transporting the drugs between them. But it's a form of criminal child exploitation, because they're basically grooming children, yeah, to do their dirty work, basically. So if the child gets caught, the child gets caught.
Yeah.
You know.
Now you mentioned how many gangs,
but they're victims, as far as I'm concerned. You know.
Oh yeah, of course they're definitely victims. I just wanted to, because you mentioned a number of gangs that are working in the UK. So what kind of effect do you think those gangs are having on the young people? Because much of what you're saying is just something that people just don't get. You know, I'm not, you know, there's certain people that know about this stuff, but there's going to be a lot of people that think, you know, oh, this is just fantasy stuff, or it might be going on in certain areas, but this is going on everywhere, isn't it?
There's 27,000 active county line gangs at the moment. That's straight from the NCA. I mean, I have contact with she follows me on Twitter. We've had a lot of conversations, which is Lynn Owens. Now, she's the Director General of the NCA, the National Crime Agency, as you know. You know, it's the numbers are frightening. You know, how many are actually out there. People just don't really look and go, oh, it won't happen to my child. You know, it is not just children in care. It's not just these children that are excluded and put into pupil referral units. They're more vulnerable. But what I was going to say before was the usual process was with what I had discussed, you know, giving them presents, befriending them on the outside. Well, where lockdowns come in, they've had to adapt. They've had to go through social media. So they're now on the likes of Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, posing as friends to any child. A lot more children were doing home education, weren't they? So they would reach out that way to them, befriend them, pose, because they don't have to show their age. They can pose as any age.
Stuart, listen, thank you so much for just saying that, for saying so much. But what you said there is so important, because, again, I wasn't even thinking in terms of that, you know, and you know, I really like the people who listen to this interview to take that on board, the people that are at home with their children, to take on board what you said, because 28,000 gangs, all looking to groom children.
Children,
you know, it's the children that is their resource, isn't it? So, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, because what it used to be, as you know, was it was a certain age before you could be charged with an offence. So the younger, for them, for these gangs, the younger the person they groom, the better. As the person gets older, they have to start worrying about them opening the mouth, you see, at the court. Whereas if they get them when they're young, potentially they're not being charged. They're going into, like, obviously, they're victims of CCE, you know, of criminal child exploitation. So they get support and things like that. But the knock-on long-term effects on children from being groomed in this way and put through this lifestyle. But a lot of them, unfortunately, they lose their lives and they go missing. There's so many lost children. It's not just that they're missing; that they're lost. You know, we call them now. A lot of people do sort of say, in regards to criminal child exploitation, it's the forgotten generation. People are just, I don't know whether they're blind to it or they just believe it won't happen to their child.
I think they turn a blind eye. I think they turn a blind eye. I don't think they're blind to it. I think they see and they turn a blind eye, because you know, it comes back to what you said earlier about, you know, them thinking a certain people, it might be a certain race, or it might be a certain ethnic group, or a certain location, a certain area. It's those people, you know.
Yeah.
So I think they turn a blind eye in order to kind of, you know, encourage this kind of delusion that they're safe in a sense, you know.
Well, I can understand that. Actually, you're right. I would say that obviously everyone wants to feel safe, don't they? So if they turn that blind eye to it and pretend it's not happening, they stay safe in their little bubble. They don't have to worry. But it's when it lands on their own doorstep, you know, it's too late then, isn't it? Well, I'm not someone to say I told you so. I'm sure you're not the same yourself, but it needs to be more mainstream. I mean, it needs educating a lot more. It needs to be out there that people really fundamentally realise the gravity of the situation. So, but again, the government needs to get involved a bit more. Well, a lot more, not just a bit more. It's fundamentally, it comes to them.
Needs to be a fundamental change with all that stuff, but that's another story. You know, you've talked about how the grooming process goes on. So when a young person is firmly involved in this life, then along with the money that might come, the fear, the twisted form of respect they might get, there's also violence that comes along with this lifestyle. And that kind of brings us full circle, because you named your group, respect comes from caring. Is it care? I might get it wrong slightly.
So it's respect comes from taking care of people, not killing them.
So when
as you know, sorry, go on.
When I was locked up in prison, as you know, one of the first things people ask you is what you doing?
What you're in for? Yeah.
Yeah. How long we're and what you doing?
Yeah.
Now, I didn't think I was even supposed to be in prison, because they were putting me in to send me a message. So when I looked at the time that I could possibly be in there, I was thinking 6 months. And I'd always say this to people I don't know. They'd say, what you're looking at? I said, well, it's not even supposed to be an imprisonable offence. I'd go through that little thing all the time. And then I would ask them, what are you doing? How long are you doing? And they would say something like 10 to me. And I'd think, I'd say to them, what, 10 months? And they'd go,
the brick.
10 years.
Yes, the brick, they call it, isn't it?
Yeah. I was scrambled, because they'd be talking to me normal, just like, it's nothing that.
Yeah.
Now, that culture there that I witnessed with the young offenders and so forth, looking at prisoners their home, was quite shocking to me. And also a lot of the things that they've done. So violence seemed to me to just be a natural part of people's lives now.
That's sad, isn't it? Yeah, but a lot of it, as I've said, is about value. I mean, if someone doesn't value their own life, how can you expect them to value someone else's? If we haven't instilled self-worth within a child, they don't respect themselves, how are they going to respect other people? They don't value their own life, how are they going to value others? That's why it's so easy to pick up a knife and actually use it. You say a lot of people now are using them out of fear. A lot of children now, a lot of people may be surprised, carry with absolutely no intention of carrying a knife. It's not for fear in some, it's fashion. Now, a lot of children are, because if it wasn't about fashion, you know, to some of them, I've spoke to a lot of children about it, and some will openly tell you, I've got to play, but look at mine, how good's this? You know, it's, if you intentionally, if you look at the statistics, the ones that are actually used in a violent offence and stabbings are usually a kitchen knife. And that's because they're the most accessible, they're the cheapest. So if it's something that you're going to use and dispose of, that's the one to go to. Now, the ones where people are getting these, you know, because there's all sorts on the internet that kids can get now. You're aware of that. You know, you have the credit card ones, this and that. But they want the biggest and the best. You know, and it's a show-off thing, as much as it used to be in our days, like a new pair of cat boots, or, you know, your latest trainers, or, you know, phones are still very much like that. But, yeah, knives. And a lot of people I've spoken to about it are actually shocked that that's the case. But I'm sorry, it really is. It's a mindset, it's a culture, and it's now a trend.
It's shocking, isn't it, to know that
Yeah.
society has come like this, you know.
Yeah.
And again, you know, the music has to just pop back into my head, because the killing, some of the ways that people are talking about killing in music now, it's like standard. Again, it's almost a fashion. It's a fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's perpetuating itself over and over again, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say to me, I've gone and done it myself. I mean, St Giles Trust reached out to me to go and do an outreach program within a couple of schools in Wales. But these were to inclusion kids. So these were pupil referral units within the school. These were kids who were part of gangs, who had carried knives, kids who were vulnerable and are being assessed as at risk potential of being groomed. So I went down. Now, it wasn't just, you hear of a lot of people going into a lot of primary schools and high schools now doing knife crime awareness talks, and it's basically saying the effects of knife crime. As much as, yes, okay, it can shock some people to actually show them the level of the injuries. My personal opinion is, you know a fire is hot. You don't need to see an image of a burnt hand to realise that if someone puts their hand in the fire, it's going to get burnt. So people going into schools, as much to a certain extent, yes, okay, make someone think twice by going, look, this is the effects of a knife. Well, it's a knife sharp. I would expect it to do damage. I would expect it to kill. The kids I was going to see, yes, I was showing them my wounds and everything and saying this is an effect, but it's the causal root that needs to be dealt with. If you take away the cause of something, there isn't an effect. So there's such a wrong approach to knife crime at the moment from so many people. So many of these violent reduction units funding people to go and do these sorts of awareness talks instead of plowing money into. I mean, what we did is when we went down is, yes, it was about mindset coaching and changing their mindset. It was coming from me and me saying, look at what I survived, getting them to open up because I had opened up, letting them see, look, anything is possible. If this has happened to me and I'm now doing this, anything is possible. And then we'll gain them qualifications. We'll get them into apprenticeships. We'll get them into employment. I mean, we built banger racer cars with them. We bought a car, they designed a car, they stripped the car down, they turned it into a banger racing car, they got to race it, and the reward, that was a reward for, which really got them all involved, working as part of a team. They designed it, so it was getting the minds and the creativity going, but they were doing qualifications of a morning, because they knew in the afternoon they were getting to do this, and the potential at the end of it, of racing these cars. And this was a youth offending program put together, and the success was unbelievable. It really was. But yeah, it's the cause that needs to be dealt with, and that is the lack of opportunities, the lack of support, the lack of role models, as you said. Not the awareness. It's an effect.
And do you think with the awareness, I understand what you're saying, if people are going into a school and just showing some shocking images, they might be shocking for the time being when they see this, but is it going to change the people that they're with, or to change their behavior, or it's not really going to do that long term, is it?
It's not, but it's still given that choice, isn't it? Because yes, that day it's affected them, and they're like, "Oh my God, let's change my minds. I won't carry now or whatever." But a bit down the line, all these other issues, the causal effects are still there. Yeah. The opportunities aren't there. That support is still not there. That person's gone to school, done a talk, they've gone. They're out the life, they've gone now. So where's that constant support? So if a situation arises, yes, they might have a second thought about using a knife, but the thought might still be there. The thought's there. So that is the effect. So it's the causal roots that the government need to go, listen, right? Here's the funding, this group, this youth group, this one, that one. Go in and do this. Businesses as well. Businesses need to be more willing to offer and give youths a chance, who haven't performed as well in school. Give them apprenticeships, give them on-the-job training.
Have we ever stopped to ask that boy that carries a knife what he wants to do when he's older? if his parents are still together and who his role models are. Cause I guarantee you he don't live next door to a doctor. Instead, he's more than likely to be riding with thugs. And they're the ones in the community prescribing the drugs and driving those cars. And I wonder if, as a teenager, he's watching how the olders carry themselves and it's learned behavior. I wonder if by the age of 12 he never had a father, and why? At the age of 13 he had his first balaclava. Was he ever scared? Is it that mum don't care, or is it just that she was never there? Maybe she's out trying to provide for the family, and by the time she gets back she feels tired and angry. Are the arguments at home? Is there a lack of affection? Are the boys outside offering you protection? From the youths up the road in a different postcode, the reason why you always go the long way home. So the olders on the block become your bigger brothers. Now it's almost as if you're related to each other. Gang related. Now we got a council estate kid filled with hatred who needs to be initiated before he's fully affiliated. Is that environment just making him numb? Does he have a choice, or is it safety in numbers? Because they're not meant to be your mentors. That's what we need grown men for. To lead by example and to nurture ambition. To teach discipline, to understand and to listen. And I apologize for generalizing, for coming across like I'm stereotyping. But we all need to know we are marginalizing a whole generation when we criminalize them. Who really wants to end up in prison or dying? And the social networks make it all look exciting. The way that gangs incite violence live online, and it's followed by an advert to make sure we're still buying. And I'm not about to blame this all on drill, but thoughts become words, and words become real. So tell me there's not a vested interest in what's manifesting, when all the kids can hear is I splashed him and I chefed him, dipped him outside of his house and then left him. For his mum to find him? Have you been to a funeral and heard a mother crying? When her son's in the ground, it sounds like she's dying. It's been like this for years. Wiping those tears and printing those T's, saying put the knife down, blaming police, writing to our local MPs. I've seen mums at knife crime rallies begging on their knees like, they've took my son, but make it stop, please. And it's our responsibility. Have you heard it takes a village to raise a child? But we're losing our community, so they're left to run wild. And this isn't the time for answers or excuses, but the youngers need to know there's consequences for their offences. Justice will be served if you're caught or let go. Because when you take a life, you forfeit your own.
I was thinking of naming it Finding Solutions to Knife Crime.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're going to call it. But as we talk, have a think, and if anything you think would be better, please say, you know.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it. Some things that I didn't mention yesterday when I was talking about disadvantaged backgrounds, and you know that obviously they look at that and they focus knife crime and something like that. Well, if you look at it now, I think basically everyone is disadvantaged because all those youth services have gone. Now, I've stressed to people quite a lot that obviously it's a multifaceted issue, and I never even mentioned some of the issues of how the dynamics at home have changed. You know, because the government haven't put money into social housing anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of private landlords have popped up, and the rents are that high that both parents are having to are forced now into going to work. So that nurturing that maybe you had as a child, I had as a child, where at least one parent was at home, both parents are out working all God's hours, you know, and that leaves the child unnurtured and frustrated, and they haven't got that guidance, you see, which is, again, why a lot of them go into gangs, because they have that family. It's a sense of family and support there. And it is a big issue, and I'm quite surprised I never even mentioned it yesterday, but, you know, you come up with things and then you forget things, or you go on a tangent. Yeah.
It was good because, I mean, I had time to think as well, and I was because you mentioned the fact that early on when you was attacked yourself, that after that you started to see survivors and victims of knife crime. And I started to think, you know, because a lot of times people, especially with the young people that I saw when I got locked up, you know, I knew that a lot of them did horrendous crimes, yeah. But I used to watch the behavior of people. I remember being in a cell early on because I learned how to get my single cell very soon. But early on, I was in a cell and I was watching the behavior of this young guy, and it was horrendous the way he would never be still. He would never ever be still in the cell 1 minute. And I remember asking him, "What kind of men did you grow up around?" And his answer was just this: weird men. Didn't go into it with him. Just that was enough. And
yeah, of course.
It's interesting that, you know, to a large degree, like you're saying, yeah. So I was seeing a boy, basically, a boy in a man's body that can do a lot of things, but basically a boy. So underdeveloped, should I say?
Yeah.
So, although I've seen these people doing horrendous crimes, yeah, they are victims too. Those people doing the crimes are also victims, and it's hard for people to look at it like that. But the stuff that you're talking about, the victims of, because obviously I'll come on to the other victims, you know, people who have actually lost people through violence and knife crime. But also, I just wanted to touch on, because it's hard for people to look at people that are the perpetrators of crime as victims too. But yeah, I want you to talk about that if it means anything, you know. In that.
No, absolutely, yeah, because obviously, regardless of time, time will pass by, and your body, obviously, as you grow up, it'll physically change. But without that support and that guidance, mentally, you're not going to grow progressively in the right way. So I'm with you there. Your body will grow, you're able to do danger, but with ACEs, with adverse childhood experiences, your mind hasn't fully developed properly, and unfortunately, you can make the wrong choices. And because your body's strong enough, obviously, you've seen people ending up in prison as a result of that. And I do as well. It's heartbreaking, really, to see that people don't have, you know, because I had a really good upbringing, to be fair. So it is heartbreaking when you see and hear of people who haven't, and the road that it's led them down. You know, it's heartbreaking. But I know from me, and obviously I supported and do support the Yusuf Mahi, you know, the young lad from Hale Barn. So I was invited last year. I think it wasn't long after. I think it was like December. So I was stabbed in the July. Yeah, I was invited to be a headline speaker for them outside the courts. I tribute that they done a vigil as such. I was on Granada Reports, actually.
I think I've seen a picture from that. I think I've seen.
Oh, okay, so I've done that. But since then, I mean, I made good contact with the family. I was supporting them a lot, and I went and done a radio interview in Manchester at All FM. It's only a community radio, but they were very supportive of Debbie Mackey. So me and Debbie went along, and we done a interview there for about an hour and a half. And it was filmed actually by Channel 4. There's a documentary being done which is going to be released later next year, so I'm part of that documentary anyway. But the effects, seeing that effects on the family from that side, because obviously my family went through a lot with the life-changing injuries that I've got, yet I survived. Now to see the effects that it really does have on the family, it's for want of a better word yet again, it's absolutely heartbreaking. But they haven't even had justice yet.
No,
you know, which makes it 10 times worse. But I'm ready when you are.
What do you think of the justice in terms of not getting justice? What do you think? How do you think the authorities, in terms of the police, the criminal prosecution service, how do you think they view knife crime and when in terms of investigating it and stuff like this?
Okay, in regards to police, I think police, they get a bad, if they're the first person that, or the first organisation that the public will reach out to, because they're the first line of our defence. They're there to protect and serve us. Yet they only have they rely on the powers given to them by the government. They rely on the officers' capability in regards to numbers, again by the government, the funding that they are given for officers. Now, they are understaffed in relation now, especially. I mean, back in the day, I used to remember when I was younger, and you used to see police walking the streets quite a lot. You don't really see that as much now. You see it more now during COVID because they're out and about making sure that no one's... Oh, sorry, I've lost... Sorry.
It's okay.
You're there, sorry. The call had come through, I apologise. Yeah, you see it more often now because of COVID. They're making sure that no one's having parties and things like that. But you don't have that community Bobby spirit anymore. I used to, as a kid, used to see the coppers on the bikes even coming up and talking. So there was a police presence there. It was known, so it was, the street seemed to be that much safer when I was younger, because you never knew if you walked around the corner that there was going to be a cop walking into you, or riding a bike into you. But
I think the police
sorry.
are more militarized and also less like that, less community and more, more control and enforcement rather than,
But what I seem to find, and speaking to different organisations and agencies, is that because of that lack of underfunding, the police force, they have had, many having to be made redundant. As you know now, they were just promised a lot of money to take on a certain amount of police officers. I think it was 20,000 police officers. I may be wrong, but I'm sure that was right. But that was across the board between all the different forces. Now, at the end of the day, that recruitment process, by the time that they had recruited a lot of these officers, a lot of officers had retired anyway. So the numbers were pretty much staying as where they are. Now, if they're not capable of the manpower to investigate half, because the knife crime, as we know, is out of control. There's a lot of incidents, not just obviously murders, but knife crime offences, whether that be robberies. If they haven't got the manpower to investigate, a lot of these are being unsolved. So the public there, especially children, don't feel protected. And if knife crime is so rife, they don't feel protected by the police because a lot of it's being unsolved. It encourages more children to protect themselves, to carry a weapon, because they cannot trust the police, unfortunately, to do that. But as I've said, I don't fully blame the police. I believe the fact that obviously the government gives them the powers, the government obviously give them the funding. But when the police actually do their job and manage to arrest someone, build a case together, in court, it can go the wrong way, not necessarily that it has to be that someone gets a not guilty when we clearly know they should have got a not guilty, because that's down to a jury, but the sentencing, the sentences that are being handed down. Therefore, again, the public are in outrage. I know so many bereaved families who just can't believe that, they've lost their child or brother, sister, auntie, uncle, husband, wife, whatever it may be, family member. They've lost them. They've gone for the rest of their life. Yet people aren't getting life. They're getting small sentences and they're out within no time at all. That, again, to the public suggests, well, let's take things into our own hands.
Yeah. And then many times when these kind of people are released on short sentences, that they go back into, I don't know if the statistics pan out to say that they go back into the same kind of activity.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's no real, within the prison system, the justice system is a mess. It really is. I mean, I've had conversations with Chris Dorr. Now, Chris Dorr is one of the leading barristers in Britain. He was a presenter on, if you remember, it wasn't on too long ago on BBC One, Crime, Are We Tough Enough? So I've had conversations with him, and he is of the same opinion that, and he's a criminal barrister, that the justice system is an absolute mess. It's a shambles. The quick turnaround, obviously, within prisons when it's should be a long-term sentence, yet within prison, it seems to be more focused on crime and punishment, not rehabilitation. Therefore, if you're just punishing someone and putting them within prison and there's no rehabilitation there for people, to address their issues, to find pathways, to qualify them, to ensure that when they come out, they've got opportunity for employment to lead a positive life. What have they got then? They've got no alternative. They still need to put food on the table.
Yeah.
You know, there's bills to pay. They've got a life ahead of them. So they turn back to what they know.
Yeah.
And that's unacceptable. And as you know, within prison, half the time it's a school and it's not a school in the right way, it's a school for crime. Because you haven't got those links to positive outlooks and outcomes, you make links within prison, within the criminal element, and make links for on the outside.
True.
So it's a perpetuating cycle.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What I found, like I mentioned yesterday, that I've been to prison twice on remand, and you know, it was a real shock to me the first time. And when I learned stuff like it is very lucrative to be in prison, you know, it's very lucrative to the drug trade. Well, any trade is good in there. Like cigarettes, if you can get cigarettes in there, what you can buy out here for £20 is hundreds of pounds in prison. So the drug trade is thriving within prison. So it's interesting that you talk about rehabilitation, but when you talk about the avenues, I believe that there are some avenues when you're in prison, there are, but because of the culture of prison, that the criminal activity, which is supported by the prison service, you know, no matter what they say, the culture is there, supported by...
You and I both know there is, because how many times, and this is only the times that it's released to the press, but where guards have been arrested for smuggling things in for prisoners. I mean, a mobile phone, you know, say a £10 throwaway phone that you call it a throwaway phone, you know, these little £10 phones, cheap phones. In prison, you'll pay £100 for. I mean, an iPhone, something like that, you're paying £500 to £1,000, unless you're in an open prison. But yeah, in these lockdown prisons, as you say, it's lucrative. You know, what? Go on.
You know that prisoners can afford this with no problem, can't they? They can
I know.
They can do this with no problem, right under the nose of everyone. They can be buying whatever, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, some of them obviously have those little phones, don't they? Those little Zanko phones, and I mean, the things that they do to get away with things, it's an eye opener. But they plug them, you know, so they've got this little phone stuck up their arse all bloody day. And then at the end of the day, they push it out, and then when they've used it, they put it back. But a lot of them, as you say, you know, the bloody big iPhone, you're not putting that up there. So how are they getting away with it? But they are, because a lot of it's happening under the noses. And why? Because guards are bringing it in for a lot of them, especially the drug trade. It's so lucrative, isn't it? I mean, what a gram of cocaine in prison is going to cost you? $250, maybe 200, 250.
There's many,
you know?
I've done quite a bit of research, and there's so many convictions of them, and those will be the ones that, you know, they don't have to leave quietly, because there'll be a lot of people, you know. So yeah, people know that they can get away with stuff, and it's, you know, the lucrative.
Yeah, well, see, it's I relate prison to the educational system in a way as well, with schools, because there's something called off-rolling within schools. So there's a lot of exclusions happen now within the school system far too readily, and it can be people, you know, maybe with disabilities as such, you know, with ACEs, with adverse child experiences, so they act out a bit more, they need a bit more support and attention. There's them who ascend, you know, disabilities. So you've also got people who are just outspoken. I think did I mention earlier on, obviously, if a child, when you're younger, if you speak out, you're known as obviously someone with their own mind, someone to look out for, someone with, you know, with a bit of intuition and such. But as soon as you get into high school, that's suppressed. It's sit down, basically get your exams done, get your results, and get out, because it's all about the Ofsted report. That's what schools are interested in. Now,
I don't think the education system in itself is it's basically preparing people to be good workers. So anybody that's falling out of that kind of main area, either going into education, being a good worker, or feeding the system in some way, when you're problematic to that, they need to really get rid of you in some way. And
yes, because The educational system, you say that basically it is the cornerstone to a civilized, social, and justified society.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the cornerstone, then why are we failing with the education so much? Who is the justice for? Because it's only for them who are robotic, the ones who will sit and just listen and just do their exams. If you've got an opinion of your own mind and you question, you're seen as one of these, maybe problem child, someone maybe ADHD, and you're pushed off. Basically, you can be excluded, put into a pupil referral unit for being disruptive. But the support, the funding there for the support for the likes of adverse child experiences and for people who are certain disabilities, it's just so underfunded. It's not fair. So a lot of the time, there's legal ramifications if you just exclude someone. It's got to be justified. Now, they can justify it by constant disruption, and that could just be that someone is speaking out of their own mind, which I don't feel at all is disruptive. I think that's potential in someone personally. But towards the end, when you're getting towards GCSEs and A-levels, what some of these schools are doing, because they can't actually justify expelling them, excluding them from schools, is they do something called off-rolling. So they put them in units with inclusion classes within school, but they take them off the school register. Now, what that means is the class of education that they're getting within school won't be as good because they're on their own. There'll be a few of them that are known as disruptive, and it's more overseeing them than educating. These are support teachers come in to teach them. They'll still get to do the exams, but any poor result that they get doesn't go down on the school's register, so doesn't affect the school's Ofsted reports. So it's a big fiddle for the school. And that's not fair because that child is not getting the education they need. That child is just basically a forgotten child who's told, right, okay, now you've got to worry yourself about your future. You're vulnerable. You haven't got the qualifications to do this, to do that. That child feels let down.
Of course,
that child
is legally writing somebody off, isn't it?
Well, exactly. And that's where gangs come into play. County lines come into play, these grooming gangs, because they're perfect for them. And that's our education system is attributing to this problem. They're basically grooming the kids themselves in a way, handing them to them, doing half the job. They are doing half the job. Now, when I say the government, in a certain respect, does do the same as well, because we're obviously within schools, they're excluding like they are. The governments aren't helping again, are they? Because they're aware of this. They're fully aware. This isn't a secret. There's information there to tell you. There's a lot of agencies that know this happens. And off-rolling shouldn't even be legal. I can't understand how they're getting away with it, but they do. But the government know it and still fail to address it and put funds into these services. So again, I would say that they are attributing to the problem of the grooming and allowing this to happen. Is it part of a bigger picture?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I would agree that it's part of a bigger picture. And thank you for educating me, because I had no idea about that, and that could be done. I'd like to talk to you further on that at some point, but that is sickening to think that, your child, so a parent could have their child written off in this way and not really trying to still do the best for the child.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
Well, the thing is, this is my opinion anyway, that, what benefit does it have to the people in government, people in what they call, the higher social class? That's it. Across the board, there is a social class, as you know. So to allow everyone to have the same equal opportunity, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is a God-given human right. But for that to happen, to allow everyone to have the same opportunities to thrive, to excel, is unacceptable to them. Reason being, if everyone can thrive and is entitled to the same equal opportunities and they do excel, the wealth has to be shared. There's no social class. If everyone is thriving, there is no social class. Who needs to be governed then?
True. One of the things I found shocking when I was in prison was the the drug trade, the National Health Service drug trade in prison. And I was shocked at how I'd see all these bodies just walking towards their meds in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like a massive population of men with mental health problems, many of them, young men, old men, who are that level of pharmaceutical drugs must be a massive business through the prison service throughout the country. And I thought,
Without a doubt, yeah.
say again?
Without a doubt, yeah. I can see where you're going. Go on.
And you know, it's like these industries that are built on like the prison system that I found, you know, it's a machine. And at the root of it again are these young people, because I remember seeing a prisoner who was going into prison called Cecil. I heard about him before I actually saw him, because he had a reputation for the man down challenge with the spice and stuff. So you know, where he'd be losing consciousness on this stuff and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I heard about him doing it a lot before I saw him, but when I saw him, I saw a mentally ill person. And I actually wrote to my MP when I was in prison to talk about the situation, because the screws were allowing this and joking about it as well.
Yeah.
So, I wrote to him, did nothing, replied to me, but did nothing. And I thought to myself with this individual that there was a lot of mentally ill people there, young people, and I thought, this person sits in front of a solicitor, they sit in front of a barrister, they see probation, they see doctors and nurses, they see police officers, all seem to be oblivious to the fact that this person is mentally ill. You know, it's a person who needs serious intervention, or they're going to die in a prison. And I felt it's shocked that nobody's really looking after him, but he is feeding the system, going through you know, short-term prison sentences, going in and out. The same solicitor most probably is making hundreds of thousands from him. You know,
it's just punishment, isn't it? And that's, you're hitting the nail on the head, because you know there's pharmaceutical companies making money. Again, you know, it's about money in that situation. It's in the prison system, regardless of what they say, and they're underfunded. The system is thriving. You know, the government is making money out of this, without a doubt. You know, as much as they say, "Oh God, we're not, we're underfunded," I can't believe a word of it. But yeah, you're seeing someone like this, and as far as the system is concerned, just meds and that'll do. You've committed a crime, you're being punished. Well, as you've just said, it's obvious that he's got issues, because he's being entitled to get a script, you know, a prescription to pick up for meds. Yet where's the other intervention? They know that he's got these mental health issues. So is that the root cause to his criminal behaviour? If it is, address it so that when he comes out, the cycle isn't perpetuated, so he's not coming back in. But it doesn't suit them. You know, it doesn't benefit the system.
No. So I guess one of the questions I would have to ask then is, because, you know, in educating young people, it's very difficult to actually let them understand the horrors of the system that they're going into, because not only have they normalised knife crime, they've also normalised the prison life. Because if you look at the music videos again, they glamorise prison life. They, you know, nobody really tells you that when you're in prison, you're seeing people committing suicide, you're seeing people mentally ill, seeing people do all kind of violence, you know.
Yeah, you're seeing people getting stabbed up in prison. You're seeing people get cut up. You're seeing people with boiling water with sugar, you know, poured and thrown on them. You know, which people don't realize the gravity of the situation, as you say, that they're actually going into. It's glamorized, isn't it? That it's a holiday camp. And especially when they're given these short sentences to them as well. You know, it's right, okay, I'm getting a short sentence, I'm going in, it's a holiday camp. you know, if some of these are ending up in open prison straight away as well. But I mean, not for violent offences, so I won't go down that avenue. That's more for fraud and things like that. But yeah, it is. It's glamorized again to a certain point. But as you know from being in there, once they've been in there, I would expect it to be a bit of a wake-up call. You know, but it doesn't seem to be, because it's a free-for-all, because there isn't a strict routine. You know, it's not regimental as such. They get away. The drug trade is still there. They're still able to use the mobile phones, as you say. So, yeah.
So educating the children now, and what your solutions then, because we've spoken a lot about the problems, and obviously from knowing the problems, there can't be any one mass solution, you know, because we haven't got the resources. You're one man, and you have a network.
Yeah.
You have a network.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. So I have a lot of agencies across the board that I can connect with. I mean, we have something in Liverpool called Households to Work, which is run through the Liverpool Combined Regional Authority. So that's all the individual councils is run by one management group, if you like. Now, they reached out to me. I've got contact with them now, and I work alongside them in regards to Households to Work. Deal with young people who are unemployed, who may have mental health issues, who might be in debt. So they can, and they have other agencies, partner agencies working for them. So they can signpost and basically do everything and get this umbrella of support around someone. Now, when it's someone who's gang affiliated or is being caught carrying a knife, that sort of thing, they'll reach out to me. And they'll reach out to the person, so I've got him, you know, this Stuart, and they'll explain who I am. 9 times out of 10, because it's Liverpool, they'll know my story anyway. A lot of people, obviously, in the city do. It's been on, you know, within the papers quite a lot for the last year, following the work that I've been able to do. So, yeah, they put me in contact with them. I'll get on the phone to them, I'll speak to them. But very often, I'll arrange to meet up with them. Now, for me, this is all a free service, what I do. I go out and it comes out of my own pocket. Now, I do know that there is groups out there and people who go out and do maybe knife crime awareness talks in schools, and it's a business. They get paid to do it. It's become a business. To me, it's unacceptable, that sort of behaviour, because you're profiting yourself off misery, you know? So I'll go out there and I'll educate for the simple fact that I want to save a life. My life is nearly taken. I've lost a lot of bereaved families, and, you know, I'm close to a lot and supported them. I just want to make a difference. While I've got time in the world, I want to make a difference and obviously stop what is going on as much as possible, because children, at the end of the day, the children are our future, because if we don't act today, they haven't got a future tomorrow. You know, what we do today affects their tomorrow. We're not here forever. You know, it's the next generation. It's them we should be looking at. But there's too many selfish people who are just interested in feeding their own life, you know, and doing well for themselves while they're on the, you know, on the planet. I don't agree with that at all. You know, it's got to perpetuate and keep on going for everyone, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But yeah, so I reach out to a lot of young people in that way. I have youth offending teams who contact me. So these are children who have gone through the system and are under youth offending teams. Then I have people contact me, even parents, you know, who are worried about their kids will contact me on social media if they suspect their children are you know, gang affiliated or within county lines. And then again, I'll do support to them. I do it within care homes now.
I want to commend you first for, you know, you saying that, you know, you don't agree with these people that have started organisations and then getting paid. And it's really commendable. You know, it's brilliant. You know, I just wanted to say, because I didn't want to forget that, because it's a very important thing that you're doing. And I think you'll have a massive effect because of the nature of what, you know, because of the place where you're doing it from. Obviously, there's organisations that start with good intention to get some funding, and then everything changes, you know.
Well, exactly. I mean, I walked away from a company a couple of months ago. So after what happened to me in July of last year, after I got stabbed, and my story went viral, someone reached out to me, and they had a mental health group online, an online community. And because of the mindset, because I had straight away, obviously, instead of getting angry, I was wanting to do something for others instead of feeling sorry for myself. He was like, that mindset's brilliant. Can you do a live video for our group? It'll help, you know, support others. And I was like, of course I will. We actually met up. He decided about a week later, he said, I've looked more at your story. He said, it'll be interesting to meet up with you. I'd like to have a chat. So we met up anyway. And then he decided, he said, I'd like you to be part of the business. He said, in fact, I've put you on Company's House today as a director with me. And he said, and I think we could do a lot more to help kids. So he did. I become a director of the company. It was 2 of us working. And then, obviously, because of I went and met, obviously, what's it called? The police crime commissioner in Cheshire. And I was telling you earlier on about the youth program that I run with the banger racing cars. Yeah. So my business partner was actually delivering the qualifications because he's a tutor assessor. So I was doing everything. He was doing that part of it. So we grew the business, and that's why a lot of the youth offending teams and everything made contact with so many people in the St. Giles Trust, because we were able to create an entire pathway for these children. We were giving them mental health support because he's a qualified mental health as well. So we were able to give them that. We had qualified counsellors working for us who would be BACB registered. So we had that facilitated, ACEs and everything, no adverse child experiences. We were able to progress the children through this. Then with my mindset and from my story and everything, inspire them to achieve. And then my business partner would come along and be able to give them the qualifications. Then we would actually employ them ourselves to then train them up for them to be able to deliver, you know, to other children. Because what better way does someone reach out and listen to someone else is someone who's been through something. So if we were able to bring a child out of the system and progress them into employment or apprenticeships and even employ them ourselves, kids were able to listen to them more because they've been in the same boat. They were able to visualize that they could follow that same pathway. But it transpired. I set up, because I was speaking with the chair of the Youth Justice Board quite a lot. He was following some of the, you know, a lot of the work that we were doing. And I said, look, at the end of the day, a happy person doesn't go out and commit a violent crime. So your mind has got to be in the right place. If your mind's not in the right place, you're more prone to take negative life choices. So I said, what I'd like to do is, because the National Health Service, the NHS, is obviously so inundated at the moment, so much under pressure because of COVID. The mental health service it's so overwhelmed that the waiting list now to get onto counselling through the NHS is in excess of 1 year. Now, I do know that the national average between you going to your GP and presenting with, you know, low mood or mental health issues, that he would either give you prescription, you know, for medication to manage your symptoms while awaiting the referral to counselling. So that counselling used to take, you know, 3 to 6 months anyway. So while you're waiting for that period of time, the issues haven't been dealt with. They're being masked. You know, it's like, it's not just, it's a prescription drug, it's a legal drug, whereas other people may take illegal drugs to mask that symptom, which, as you know, they do. People will drink so they don't feel something. People will take any sort of drug so they don't feel something. Well, these people are actually turning up to solve a problem and have been given drugs to mask the problem, you know, while they're waiting. So there was nothing really in place on a daily situation for public to get that support, other than Samaritans and the likes of mine. But they're especially Samaritans, they're a suicide, basically. You know, like it's when you've reached that crisis point. So what is there in between? In between that GP referral and that crisis point, there's nothing. So I set up the first national helpline. So that's set up now. It's operational, it's running, but it's running under that company's name because I was waiting for the company. But I've got a paper clip and everything. There was a big story about it where I had obviously set this up. And that is all the people that we actually took on were volunteers, but we trained them. So we trained every volunteer. We give them a qualification in mental health level 2 first aid first before they could go on the phone. Every 4 to 6 weeks, they get a further qualification themselves. So not only are they there, more experienced and more equipped to deal with the public every day, anyone can pick up the phone and get that support, which is, you know, mental health, it's so important. Also, it's a training scheme for these people because so many jobs have been lost through COVID.
Yeah.
We thought, right, if we get these volunteers, let's give something back. And we were going to train them up to be counsellors to fully help the NHS and stop that referral waiting list. If someone phoned through, there was a counsellor there and then, ready to be able to deal with it at that point. So that was all set up. But as I say, I found out that a lot of the funds that were being granted to the company weren't being spent in the right way, and they weren't fully going on the youth programs. When I'm doing the youth programs, they weren't going as they should be to the children, you know, fully. So I found this out, and I made the step to walk away from the business.
You know, being in an arts background as well, what you're saying kind of makes sense, because there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of funding that is secured on the back of young people, you know, right across the board, from very young children right up to, you know, and a lot of times it's the funding that's the priority, really. So I understand what you're saying there. It's good to be able to do something without that funding, which is very difficult. What I want to do now is, because you mentioned bereavement, and people have spoken to you about stuff, or families have come to you if they're worried that their children might be involved in county lines or gangs or whatever. Could you say to people what it would be to look for if your children are being groomed? Because a lot of people might be oblivious to, you know, what they might see, the changes or whatever.
Yeah, so changes in the children, it's any sort of behavioural change. If you're seeing behavioural changes in your child, something out of the norm, if they're snappy, if they're hiding things, you know, if they're coming home from school late, if they're being, you know, if you're getting reports of them missing lessons, you know, these are all considerations. Where are you going? You know, what is going on? What's up with your behaviour? You know, behavioural changes, missing school, coming home late, going missing overnight. They might sound silly because people think, oh, well, the kids, you know what I mean? They've just bunked off school, or they've stayed out overnight. The kids being kids, they've done an all-nighter with their mates. You know, new clothes, new trainers, basically things that you haven't bought. As soon as you start noticing things like this, and you see the other behaviours going with it, and there's things that you're noticing that children have got that you simply haven't bought, their alarm bells go straight away. Yeah,
in terms of that, can I ask a question? Because like you say, a lot of people are struggling at the moment to buy their children stuff. A lot of people who might be single mothers who want to do the best for them, for their children, you know, they might be tempted to say, okay, well, I'll turn a blind eye to, you know, he's got a pair of new trainers, or, you know, because they can't afford that for him. Do you think there might be people who might say, okay, you know, I'll let it go, I'll let it slip? Not their children to be into.
You think that a lot of people, because they're obviously there, the household is struggling, that they're aware that the children are doing it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure that, yeah. So it's basically to help bring an income into the family, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that happens. What can you do about that? Because how do you spot the signs of that yourself? You know, first and foremost, it's got to start at home, where we're noticing these things. Other than that, it's for neighbours to be more vigilant and be aware of the telltale signs, for school teachers to be aware. It's very difficult when the problem is at home.
Yeah.
You know, if the problem's at home and they're supporting the problem, the outside, you know, what they're getting into, it's you know, it's a lot more difficult. It can't be dealt with. It can be dealt with, because obviously, are they still missing school? If they are missing school, then it's up to the school system to get in touch with social services, send someone out and start investigating why they're missing school. You know, these teachers obviously have to be more trained as well to look out for signs of behavioural changes themselves. If a child is obviously a quiet child, and, you know, or a happy child, and then all of a sudden their demeanour, the whole personality has changed, then there's an issue, isn't there?
Definitely.
And that needs to be addressed. And
Yeah.
too often than not, though, people don't really want to get involved, do they? They're paid to do a job, and that's their job, and that's sad.
Yeah, I think that there could be a lot of children who are displaying changes over a time when parents may expect changes, you know, in those
Yeah,
years. So it might be
yeah,
confusing to understand what's going on, because any child is going to change around those ages. Because a lot of the times, although it can be younger children, we're looking at what, 12s, 13s.
yeah, yeah. So you're hitting puberty, your personality is going to change,
Yeah,
obviously. So the other things, as I say, the real things that you're going to be really looking out for is that skipping school, is the new things that they've got, new friends that they start mentioning.
yeah,
You know, if it's names of friends you haven't heard before, and it's like, oh, who's that? Pay more interest, find out exactly who it is,
yeah.
you know, that they're hanging around with and where it is they're going. Yeah, absolutely.
Because again, and to parents who might think that, you know, they'll turn a blind eye to this and that, remember that the road your child might be on may be one where, you know, you'll lose your child, or, you know,
Oh,
you
yeah.
could make another parent or family lose a brother, a friend, you know. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very important. Thank you very much for that, Stuart. Now, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I'd love
That's
you,
okay.
you know, because you've been very gracious in coming back a second time. And what I'll do, I don't know how long these have lasted, so I might split them into two or put them into one.
Yeah, yeah. All
But
right.
I just wanted to ask if there's anything you'd like to add. You know, I've learned a lot, I must say, and I know that people learn a lot. But yeah, is there anything you'd like to really finish up?
What I would like to say, even if it's not your child, you know, if you've got someone, a neighbour, someone like that, and it's a single parent, and you see their behaviour changing, or, you know, if they're acting out or something like that, everyone needs a role model. Every child needs to be supported. You don't have to be in a paid profession to do that, to be a role model for someone and guide them. So if you see someone that you feel needs that support and guidance, who hasn't got that role model, please try and step in and be that person for them.
Do you have any links with schools and stuff like this? Because you've mentioned schools, haven't you?
Yeah, well, a lot. I've St. Giles Trust. I've been into schools and done outreach programs for them within the schools. A lot of parents and a lot of school teachers, you know, a lot of friends that I have from school are like school teachers now and on the board of governors, and a lot of them contact me to, you know, and want me to come in and do talks about awareness of knife crime and things like this. So in the past, I've said, well, I don't just strictly do a knife crime awareness, because obviously, because to me, I understand from a point of view, okay, come and look at my wounds, you know, and this is what can happen. This is the actual reality of a knife wound. It can give someone, that choice in the head to go, you know, put that knife down. It's still a choice. But as I say, I prefer to deal with the causal effects, the root causes, so that there is no effect. They don't have to have that second choice because the cause has been taken away. So I have gone and done these talks, but I always go a bit further and I try and create a pathway for them. So sometimes when we've gone into the schools, what we've done is I've done a knife crime talk and everything, but then we've offered a first aid qualification along with catastrophic bleeding. So it's showing them a pathway from, instead of taking a life, save a life. So we give them those tools.
Very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So what about if people want to get involved with you, or people want to contact you? Obviously, when I put the videos up, I put links in and stuff like that. But what kind? Because on the page it talks about how people can support and get involved.
Yeah, so we've got that page, but attached to it now, last week I opened up a group. So we've got a group as well, so it's interactive for the public. So there's people can post themselves on that page. So there's a lot of interaction. I've been doing a lot more. A lot of these groups, you see, to me, they're like although they're doing good things, they're raising more awareness. But to me, all you have to do is switch the TV on or read a newspaper to have awareness of knife crime. So I don't report. If you see my page and even look at the group, I don't report on like there's just been a stabbing in such and such an area. What it is because then I'm a news channel as far as I'm concerned. This is stuff that anyone can Google.
A lot of the sites are like that, aren't they? Just put, you know,
yeah.
The first thing you see is like a news report of this, and
exactly
really, because it is a bit like sensationalize it in a way.
Well, yeah. So what I tend to do, I steer away, and you won't see anything on my group of right. Look, there's been a stabbing here or there. I mean, yesterday there was a stabbing down the road. Last night there was a stabbing down the road from us. A young lad, 17, was stabbed 5 times. Luckily, they weren't deep wounds, but that's all over the Liverpool Echo now. You know, all over our paper. But no doubt it'll be on certain sites as well. But for me, what's the point? They can read that in the newspaper. What I prefer to do is speak to people and educate people like we've done today, you know, speaking about it, letting people know. I will put, obviously, the reasons, the complex issues behind, and there's not one solution. That's the problem, as you say, that people always go, what's the solution to knife crime? And it's like, well, how long have you got? You know, it's a complex issue. There's a lot of different agencies need to really come together and be involved, because you do need, some of these children will need mental health help, you know. They've been through a lot, they're committing violent crimes. Yes, they need that help. Then you've got someone obviously providing qualifications. Then you're providing the apprenticeship, the employment. So it can't really all come under one umbrella, although we were doing that, you know, as a business, we were, to be fair. But we had a lot of agencies working alongside us anyway.
So in order to reach, because obviously the more people that are aware of what's going on is the best. So
yeah.
We know why you got into this and what happened to you.
Yeah.
What would have reached you before your incident, before you was knifed, before you had that attack, when you was in your life, you know?
Yeah, I'll be honest, and I posted this not you know, like last year when it had happened to me. I was oblivious. I really was. You know, I was oblivious to how bad the situation was. And like we mentioned, you know, previously, is it that people turn a blind eye? Sometimes people do. Is it knowingly? Well, no, because as I said, people want to feel safe. So subconsciously, they'll turn a blind eye, but now a lot are desensitized to it. But unless it lands on your own doorstep, unfortunately, I don't think people realise and will ever take hold of how bad the situation really is. It's the people that follow with me, the people who are involved with me, the majority of them have lost someone through knife crime, know someone who's lost someone, so they're involved. Other people, when I'm telling them there's, you know, how serious these issues are and county lines and explaining to them, going through the complex issues and everything, they're shocked. And they think, oh, well, it's not going to happen to my child. You know, but as I say, it can happen to absolutely anyone's, and I fear for people really do that.
It's happening to people's children every day. It's
every single day.
So it's more or less a case of, if it's not happening to you, you're one of the lucky ones, because it's happening to people around you, maybe friends, maybe, you know, neighbours. It's happening because, you know, this is the thing in what I try to think about these days, you know, a collective caring in society in general, because the thing is this, there's a lot of groups that I'm part of or involved in who are looking at protecting the children, but they're looking at protecting them from this angle. Maybe it be sexual offences, maybe it's this, but I think if we all have a general understanding of how valuable the children are, in like you said, we'd most probably more be readily willing to actually stand up and take notice of what's happening, because to a large degree the children need a lot more love and understanding, really, you know.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's one person can't do it on their own. As you said to me, you said, I'm one person, what can I do? There's a lot of people and agencies that are doing great things, and we work with some of them, you know, coming together, but it takes a village to raise a child. You know, that saying's been around for such a long time, and it's so true. Everyone needs to step up and be involved, because I think people actually think that this is going to go away, that it's just a trend, and it's one of those things that, oh yeah, we're hearing about it all the time, but it'll fizzle out. My child will be okay. Well, it's not going away, because the issues, the causal issues, are yet to go away. Therefore, matters are only going to get worse. It needs everyone to stand up and actually pay attention and actually actively get involved and address these causal issues, be that support and create these pathways.
Yeah.
But yeah, the nurturing is a really big, and that support and role models is massive. It really is.
Well, when I said that you was one man, it wasn't to say that you can't do, but what I meant was, because to me, you're doing massive amounts, from being one person. You're making a big difference. And I'm sure when people listen to this, they'll see your passion and it's great. I was watching a video last night about violence and music. And
I sent you have you not got the link? I sent you on Messenger a link of Quentin Green's, one of his tracks to listen to about night crime. It's honestly, it resonates and educates. It's fantastic, honestly. It's something that I'm sure after we've done this and then you listen to it, you'll be messaging me going, wow.
Really?
Yeah, honestly, I'll be shocked if you didn't.
Maybe I can get in touch with him and see if I can use it for this at the end or something.
I'll ask him, mate. Yeah, I'll ask him. I'm sure he'll let you. I'd like to link you up, to be fair, mate, because obviously you're into, you do your music, he does his thing. Yeah. Have a listen and tell me what you think.
I will do, definitely, and it would be good to link, because music is important now. It is very important. But the person who was doing this program last night, they were saying that after looking at some of the issues that relate to this in terms of violence and glamorization of the violence in music, he said he thinks it's over for humanity. He thinks there's no use trying, which in a lot of levels I can understand why he would say that, but hopefully we don't all think like that. So do you believe that you do?
That's a defeatist attitude, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. And no, while there's breath in me, I refuse to lie down. And I think we've overcome a lot throughout history. You know what I mean? If our grandfathers had lay down back in the day, we wouldn't be here today, would we? Our great grandfathers who have fought for our freedoms and all that. So, and that does upset me when obviously we've just had Remembrance Day. My son was born on Remembrance Sunday, and you're seeing people give such respect for them, and yeah, it's lovely, but in a way, it's I get frustrated, because I'm like, look at what they've done. They've laid down their lives so that we can have the freedoms and the opportunities in a civilized society. Yet look at what we're allowing to happen. And I'm sorry, we can't just blame the government, because it takes a village to raise the child. We've all stood back in a way and watched this as it's progressed, and it's got to the level that it has. A lot of people will stand up and go, well, I'm not taking the blame. Well, it's all of us. We're all culpable. We're all within, living together in the same country, world, society. So we're all as culpable, really, as the next person.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. But as far as music's concerned, I'm with you on that. It glamorizes it, and I do believe that it does have a serious effect.
Definitely. I mean, for me, this might be going deep, but I've looked at music in very many different ways over the time that I've been doing music. And I would say it's only in the latter times when I've gone through a lot of pain in my life, how music has been there to kind of give me an escape before it was able to give me some healing. Yeah. It was just an escape, but the escape was necessary. And I think that as I look back at my past, this is even outside of me actually making music. And I remember how in darker times in my life, the music was darker too.
Yes.
Yeah. The music was darker.
See, people don't affiliate that, do they? They don't. They're just so quick to defend certain types of music. But as you've just pointed out, how many people, when they've lost a partner, you know, say they've broken up with the girlfriend or the boyfriend, how many people put a sad song on that they know is going to make them cry? Well, that's reacting to what they're listening to. So it is having an effect. So why shouldn't some violent music have an effect and make someone more prone to act like that? I'm sorry, but it will. And it does, you know.
Yeah, it does. And I think
absolutely.
More people have to say that, and you know, more power to the people that are using the music in a positive way, which is what I'm hoping to do very, very, very soon. So, yeah, it's good. And you know something, it's been amazing speaking to you. Absolutely amazing. I would actually like to speak to you again a bit further down the line, and no doubt I'm going to stay in touch and maybe see in what other ways I can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to go easy on your phone now because I just see it pop up.
I know, it just come up again, didn't it? 20% left.
I don't need to just die without giving you the opportunity to just thank you and give you a proper outro. Yeah.
Oh, no, absolutely. Respect to you for all that you're doing and all you've come through yourself. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Have a listen to that track.
I will
you like it? I'll contact him. I'll link you up and we can use it on this and see what you can do together, because he's got a message that really, you know, his written words it's powerful, in my opinion. So see what you think.
I will do. Thank you very much.
Totally. Yeah, you too.
Have we ever stopped to ask that boy that carries a knife what he wants to do when he's older? If his parents are still together and who his role models are? Because I guarantee you he don't live next door to a doctor. Instead, he's more than likely to be riding with thugs. And they're the ones in the community prescribing the drugs and driving those cars. And I wonder if, as a teenager, he's watching how the olders carry themselves and it's learned behavior. I wonder if by the age of 12 he never had a father, and why? At the age of 13 he had his first balaclava. Was he ever scared? Is it that mum don't care, or is it just that she was never there? Maybe she's out trying to provide for the family, and by the time she gets back she feels tired and angry. Are the arguments at home? Is there a lack of affection? Are the boys outside offering you protection? From the youths up the road in a different postcode, the reason why you always go the long way home. So the olders on the block become your bigger brothers. Now it's almost as if you're related to each other. Gang related. Now we've got a council estate kid filled with hatred who needs to be initiated before he's fully affiliated. Is that environment just making him numb? Does he have a choice, or is it safety in numbers? Because they're not meant to be your mentors. That's what we need grown men for. To lead by example and to nurture ambition. To teach discipline, to understand and to listen. And I apologize for generalizing, for coming across like I'm stereotyping. But we all need to know we are marginalizing a whole generation when we criminalize them. Who really wants to end up in prison or dying? And the social networks make it all look exciting. The way that gangs incite violence live online, and it's followed by an advert to make sure we're still buying. And I'm not about to blame this all on drill, but thoughts become words, and words become real. So tell me there's not a vested interest in what's manifesting, when all the kids can hear is I splashed him and I chefed him, dipped him outside of his house and then left him. For his mum to find him? Have you been to a funeral and heard a mother crying? When her son's in the ground, it sounds like she's dying. It's been like this for years, wiping those tears and printing those T's, saying put the knife down, blaming police, writing to our local MPs. I've seen mums at knife crime rallies begging on their knees like, they've took my son, but make it stop, please. And it's our responsibility. Have you heard it takes a village to raise a child? But we're losing our community, so they're left to run wild. And this isn't the time for answers or excuses, but the youngers need to know there's consequences for their offences. Justice will be served if you're caught or let go. Because when you take a life, you forfeit your own.